everyone, it's Michelle Caruana from Play Cafe Academy and Profitable Play, and I'm really excited about today's video. So I recently took my 6-year-old to explore a More Children's Museum in Buffalo, New York, and we absolutely loved it. I took so many notes about things that I loved about the facility, and I took video pretty much the whole time. So I'm going to share all of that with you today, and I want you to see it for yourself to give you a little bit of inspiration how you can employ some of these concepts into your businesses. But really quickly, before I get started with this vlog style video, anytime I post a vlog or a play space or a museum review, I always end up getting a lot of new people on my video. So people that aren't familiar with my channel or aren't familiar with me. So again, really quickly before we get started, hi, like I said, I'm Michelle, and after owning and operating my own indoor playground for over 5 years and eventually opening a second location and then subsequently selling my businesses and moving away, I decided to become a coach and course creator for prospective and current indoor playground owners. And I help people launch and operate their businesses with more ease, joy, and profit. So I always do these vlog style videos from the perspective of an indoor playground owner. So if you found my video, maybe it was suggested to you by YouTube and you're just kind of looking for, a fun video to watch from a parent's perspective. Again, I really take more of a business approach. So just keep that in mind. Again, if you're new here and if you want to connect with me on Instagram, my profile, all my courses, my consulting, everything that you need to know about me, all of my resources, most of which you can download for free right now, are linked in the video description. And I have a ton of these vlogs posted. I have an entire playlist. So if you like this video and you found it inspiring, feel free to check that playlist. It is also linked in the video description. All right, so now that we got this out of the way, before I get into sharing all of the video from our visit, I wanted to go over a couple of things that I really loved about this facility that really popped out at me. So I want you to keep these things in mind and look out for them as I share the video of our visit. So number one, right off the bat, I loved that they were very upfront on their website and in all of their marketing materials about what type of play I could expect when we were visiting. And to be perfectly honest, this was a completely impromptu visit. So we were actually across the street trying to see the Buffalo Sabers game. And I was with my 6-year-old, so Silas. He is autistic, for those of you, again, who are new to my channel. He's non-speaking, but he absolutely loves indoor play centers and children's museums. But he doesn't really like sports games. He doesn't like anything loud. So I knew that trying to bring him to the Sabers game was going to be a little bit of, a push. And, as a special needs mom, I'm always completely torn between, should I push him a little bit outside of his comfort zone or, should I just respect his wishes and not even try? So this was one of those days where I just decided to go for it. We had just gotten back from Disney. I was feeling very confident because our trip went really well. And I'm going to be posting a Disney review or Disney trip review soon. But so we went to the Sabers game. It was my 6-year-old, myself, my husband, and my 8-year-old. And I mean, before the game even started, I could just tell that it was not going to go well. He wouldn't go in the seat. He was covering his ears. He was crying. And I can usually tell pretty quickly if his, if it's something that we can push past and again, get him to, explore outside of his comfort zone a little bit. And I could just tell that that was not going to happen today. So immediately, like I pull up my phone, I'm like, is there a coffee shop around? Like, what is there to do around here? And I noticed that right across the street, there was Explore and More Children's Museum. And even though we've been living in Buffalo for like over 18 months, we just had never had the chance to visit yet. And it was something that had been on my list, but we really didn't go to many indoor places during COVID and during the aftermath because my 6-year-old would not wear a mask. He just would not tolerate it. And we just didn't want to risk getting sick and, the whole deal. So we just hadn't had the opportunity to visit yet. And I noticed it was within walking distance. So I was like, to my husband and 8-year-olds, I was like, enjoy the Sabres game. We're going to go across the street. So I didn't have a lot of time to prepare myself. I didn't pack a backpack. I literally just had my jacket and my credit card. I didn't even bring my keys, ID with me, nothing. It was all in my husband's car. So again, this was completely impromptu, but just a quick search on my phone gave me a ton of pictures. It gave me a really good idea of what to expect. I knew that I couldn't bring any outside food or drink, and I just knew it was going to be a very active visit, right? This isn't one of those places where you can sit down, have a cup of coffee, and your child is always going to be, in your eyesight. This is definitely one of those places that is very open. There's multiple levels. So I was going to have to pretty much chase him around the whole time. But again, I was fine with that because I had looked at the website. I understood what I was getting into. Again, something that really drives me crazy is when indoor playgrounds try to convey themselves like this calm, relaxing, intimate environment. And then you walk in and it's like 10,000 square feet. There's a million different things going on. There's not a lot of places to sit. And like, yeah, maybe they have like a push button cappuccino machine, but they really don't do a great job of representing their business or their vibe or their type of play on their website. This place did a great job. So again, glad I had my sneakers on. I knew what I was getting into. So I love that they were very upfront about what to expect, even though I didn't have a lot of time to do research. Number two, I thought it was really inclusive. So, I mean, granted, my son is autistic, so he has a very specific set of needs, but I noticed just because I have a trained eye as somebody who coaches indoor playground owners, I noticed, and you'll see this in the video that I shared, they put a lot of thought into being as inclusive as possible. And they really utilized universal design, which I talk a lot about on my podcast as well. And I absolutely love the concept of universal design when it comes to designing indoor playgrounds. And the whole idea behind universal design is that being more inclusive benefits everybody and hurts nobody. So, again, keep an eye out for those types of structures and additions while I share the video. But I love that it was very inclusive. And they also had a great calming, quiet room slash sensory room that we ended up utilizing when we had to do a switcheroo from more gross motor play back to the more imaginative play area. Sometimes my son really struggles with those transitions. So we did end up utilizing this room, and I'm going to show it to you. But again, I could really tell that whoever designed the space put a lot of thought and intention into accommodating children of all needs and abilities, which I really appreciated. All right, next, and again, you'll see this in the video. I love that they have their sponsor and donor names everywhere. So there's a ton of different opportunities to either sponsor parts of the museum or become a donor. So you'll see that almost all of the museum exhibits are sponsored by some sort of local business or organization. And then there's also a large handful of local families and just people who are passionate about play that have donated to the museum. And the museum was very intentional around thanking them, making sure they were recognized. And something that a lot of indoor playground owners really miss out on is saving so much money on their indoor playground startup costs and operating costs because they don't think to reach out to local businesses specifically to sponsor part of their play areas. And a lot of people think, well, I'm not a nonprofit, so no local businesses are going to give me money, right? Because they don't get the same tax benefits as you would if you were a nonprofit and they could declare it a charitable donation. However, what a lot of people don't realize is that local businesses can write these expenses off. So let's say they give you $2,000 to put up a playhouse with their name on it or something like that. And again, I'm going to show you some examples of this in action so you can see it. But let's say they give you $2,000 to put up a playhouse. They can write that off as a marketing and advertising expense. So again, while it's a little different than categorizing something as a charitable donation and the benefits are a little bit different, it is an expense that can reduce their overall tax obligation at the end of the year. So it can reduce their revenue that is taxable. And that's a big incentive for a lot of local businesses. Plus, if you're constantly welcoming local families and you have a lot of traffic and people are very excited about your business, they're going to get good results from this advertising and marketing expense. So again, there are really no downsides to reaching out to local businesses and families to sponsor parts of your facility. So again, I really took notice of this and I thought they did a great job, and it wasn't tacky. It wasn't, overly salesy or pushy, because I do think some indoor playgrounds do this not so great. So I really liked how they executed this. I also love that there was a mix of different types of play. So as you'll see, there was water play, there was sensory play, there was gross motor play, there was imaginative play, there was heavy work, and I absolutely love that. And we're going to get into that definition. I had to look it up and I wrote it down. But I really, really liked that they had a lot of that incorporated. My son definitely burned off all of his energy here. He couldn't have loved it anymore. So I love that there was so many different things to do. Some of the stuff he just wasn't in the mood for, like some of the more fine motor play and things like that. But that's okay because there were so many other things to do. So no matter what kind of mood your kid's in, they're going to find something that attracts them. All right. The next thing that I really loved is that it was so clean and organized. And this was no mistake. They had a ton of different staff members walking around all the time. They were constantly mopping, they were constantly organizing, and they were really just kind of making themselves known. And I could tell that there was a mix of like volunteers and actual paid staff members because they were dressed a little bit differently and they just had different demeanors, but they were definitely making themselves known. So parents were kind of, again, following along with their child. They were playing alongside them. Anytime their child moved from one task or one activity to another, they were kind of tidying it up because the staff were going to have to do it right after they left if the parent didn't do it themselves. So I think, again, the fact that it was so clean and organized was not an accident. You could tell that they really prioritized this. And again, it was really executed well by having so many staff members on the floor. And I know this isn't possible for all businesses, but again, it worked for this particular space. The next is I love that there was so much use of wall space, and there was really no corner of this museum that was not used, that didn't have some sort of attraction or something like that. And I love that every single exhibit was highly intentional. So what I mean by that is, for example, there was a car wash exhibit, which was sponsored by one of our local um, car wash chains, Delta Sonic. And what I loved about it is not only did it have all of the different parts of a car wash that the kids could kind of manipulate and play with and really engage different parts of their brains and bodies, it had a ton of stuff to read. So my 6-year-old is very physical. He can't read yet and he is non-speaking. So he loves the physical play stuff. But if I did have my 8-year-old with me, I know that he would have been standing at all of those display boards. He would have been reading every single fact. He would have been absorbing it all, and he would have really loved those little touches that, again, they don't cost a lot of money to put up, but it takes a lot of planning and it takes a lot of forethought. So I love that there was a wide variety for different ages, different levels, different skills, different abilities, and again, just so much intention. And the last thing before I get into the video portion, I know you're probably begging me to shut up by now, but the last thing that I loved about this facility is that there was a ton of local flair. So along with those informational boards about how things work and how things are done and why this is here and how this car wash works and runs and things like that, there was a ton of information about local history, about different areas, about why they, again, had certain parts of exhibits. And I'm going to show it to you because it's kind of hard to explain without actually showing you, but it was so unique to Buffalo that I thought it was an absolutely brilliant concept for both local or people local to Buffalo and tourists, because it is close to the Buffalo waterfront. It's close to the Sabers Arena. It's pretty close to Niagara Falls. So again, I thought it was a great way of conveying our local history and our local culture without being too, again, too boring with it, I guess is what I want to say. It was still very much a play, fun, focused museum, but there was just little bits and pieces everywhere that you could read, that you could learn more about, again, Buffalo and how it's evolved throughout the years, which I thought was really interesting. All right, so without further ado, I am going to get into showing you our visit. And if you have any questions or anything like that, I'm going to link all of the museum's website in the video description. Comment on this video, ask me if you need anything clarified, or just if you have any comments or things that I might have missed or didn't point out, feel free to comment them below. And again, my Instagram is linked in the video description if you want to chat there. All right, let's get into our visit to Explore and More Children's Museum. So right when you walk in, there's a little mock bus bench, and we love this. There's a map of Buffalo, and again, a lot of local Buffalo feel, so that's what our buses look like. I love this area, and I slowed it down a little bit so you could see it, but I love this area, and if you look closely, every single wheel is the name of a business or a donor, and I love that it kind of signifies that they all work together to bring this amazing museum to life. So this is just one way that they thanked all of their donors and contributors, which I thought was really special, and it's something that you can play with. I love this piece too. This is a play item from their original museum location, which was in a different town, but I loved looking at that part of history and just how far it's actually come. So their first museum was teeny tiny, and now they have this large multi-level structure. There was also a place where you could donate if you felt called to do so, which I liked. This was the car wash area that, again, is sponsored by Delta Sonic, which is one of our local chains, which I thought was really cool. So any kid that is into cars or mechanics or anything like that would have loved this. My son absolutely loved running through the little mock car wash, and he must have done this over and over and over and over again, but it was really cool. This is what it looked like on the inside, so a little sensory experience. This is one of those heavy work areas, so you really had to pull down on that lever to wash that little car, which he absolutely loved. Then there was a little vacuum where you could actually dry the car, which, again, this was an absolute favorite. It was a little noisy, but we got through it. Next, you could actually work on a little car, which a lot of the kids loved. This area was really crowded. I wish they would have had a couple of these cars, but they had little wrenches and little tools, and it made a lot of noises. It was really cute. Next, they had a little vacuum area next to the car wash station, and you could put these little scarves through the vacuum. As you can see the cloths travel all the way through the vacuum system. This was, again, something that my son must have done for at least 20 minutes. It really held his attention very well, and it was a very cool toy. And again, kind of what I was mentioning at the beginning of this video, I love that there was a lot of information everywhere. That's a picture of an actual Delta Sonic location in Buffalo, New York. So again, my 8-year-old son would have absolutely loved to learn really interesting facts about the car wash, and in this specific case, water filtration. Again, sorry for the slow down videos, but I took these videos really quickly and I want you to see everything. This is the water area, so they had an absolutely huge water area. Now, as you can see, the floor is cement, so it was getting a little bit wet. And they did have smocks, but of course, my son didn't want to wear one, but that's okay. He loved playing with the waters, and again, you can see all of these different informational plaques telling some different history and facts all about Buffalo, which is where the museum is located. Again, there were just so many different water stations, and my son doesn't really like to play with others. He likes to be more independent. So as you can see, there's a large water table where most of the kids were, but then there was space where he could kind of do his own thing and not be bothered by the crowds. Now, as you can see, the water was kind of getting everywhere, but there were staff members that were mopping constantly, so it didn't feel unsafe. Again, I love all of the different opportunities to push and pull and get some of that energy out. My son loves manipulating things and the heavy work areas. This is a little drier area where you could dry off if you got wet. I thought that was really cute, especially for the kiddos who don't want to wear the smocks. Again, this was probably our favorite area. I love the little light up wall. I love that there were some bubbles in there. There were different boats and toys and dolls that you could play with in the water. Here's another look at this cool thing. Again, I didn't read all of the informational boards, but I also love that above this, they had some great structures on the ceiling to reduce the noise level, because again, when you have high ceilings, you have a lot of noise and echoes. So I love that they had those, so it really reduced the noise. And then next to the large water area, again, they had this pulley system, which my son absolutely loved. So you could put a sandbag on the end of the rope and then actually pull it, which I thought was really, really cool. And there you go, again, him getting a workout in. And just really quickly, the definition of heavy work in occupational therapy describes activities that push or pull against the body and creates active resistance. And that was so true. There were so many opportunities for this at the museum. And again, this is a perfect example of every single wall, every single corner being so intentional. So these stickers on the wall show different donors, different families that have contributed to the museum. And I kind of breezed past it, but there was a little corner with fishing supplies and things like that. But there is really no wasted space in this entire museum. So hats off to whoever did this design. I would love to speak to them if anyone has any hookups. This area was, again, above. It was overlooking the water area, but it was one of the more quiet areas. There was a sign that requested only one family be in this area at a time. They were trying to keep, separation between families, and they were also, you could tell that this area was meant to give kids a little bit of a quiet break away from the chaos and noise of the museum floor. Now, this isn't the sensory area that I was talking about. That's in another part of the video. And this actually overlooked a curling rink, which is really funny. Buffalo is really close to Canada. All right, next we headed upstairs to the gross motor area. So again, this is a great example of universal design and an inclusive space that even kids in wheelchairs can use. And again, I love that it was focused on all abilities and very inclusive. My son absolutely loved pushing all of the other kiddos on this, and he did this for a really long time. And as you can see, this particular piece is sponsored by a bunch of different local businesses. This is a better look at the gross motor area. So again, it had that spinning object, and there was also a climbing structure that was made out of rope. Now, to be honest, my son did struggle quite a bit with this. So as you saw a moment ago, there was a lot of signs telling kids, only go in this way, only go out this way. And it was very specific in terms of how you could use the structures. And my son doesn't read yet. And as I mentioned, he's non-speaking. So he struggled a lot with this, had a couple tantrums, but we got through it and we survived. I love this little bike area where you can actually utilize the bikes to produce electricity. Again, another example of a great learning area. I love that they had pedal options without the leg pedals, again, for people with all abilities and differences. I thought that was a really cool addition to the space. Next, there was kind of like an engineering/tinkering area. Again, probably better for those older kids. My 8-year-old would have loved this area. My 6-year-old was just not into it. I would have loved to get some better video of this, but we had to breeze past it. I love that they had a little hospital area here. So again, this museum is largely sponsored by the Children's Museum in Buffalo. So they had a little mock hospital, which I think is really cool, again, because we have to prepare kids for the unexpected. Again, this is a great example of wall space. There is no wasted space in this entire museum. And my son absolutely loved this wall area. This is the sensory room that I was talking about. So there was a door that actually closed, and we relaxed in here for quite a while. Again, because my son struggles with transitioning oftentimes between gross motor play and more quiet, imaginative play. So again, there was a sign on the outside of the door that said the sensory-friendly space is for taking a break, for quiet time for those that need it, or to nurse or feed an infant. And again, this was a very small space, so one family at a time, but we really appreciated that it was there and that the door closed and locked. And again, there was a little sign that asked people to not eat or drink and to return all items as they found them because there was no staff in this area. This is another area of imaginative play. This was something that we missed on the first floor. We kind of breezed past it, but it was kind of like a little market, again, talking about the history of Buffalo and its origins. And then finally, there was a little play kitchen, and again, it was kind of tucked away in a corner, and it was a nice break from the loud, chaotic noise of other areas. And look at this product placement here. This play museum had a butcher block island, and look at that, it's even sponsored. So do not sell yourself short when you're thinking about sponsoring pieces for your play area. You can have your entire play area paid for by other businesses. Next, my son took a little break to have a tea party, and we cheersed, and that was the end of our visit. All right, I hope you enjoyed that little behind the scenes peek of our visit to Explore and More Children's Museum. Again, we absolutely loved it. And just to wrap up this video, I want to reiterate the couple things that I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I loved really quickly. So, number one, I like that they were very upfront online and on their promotional materials about what to expect as a parent or caregiver. I love that it was very inclusive of all abilities. I love that pretty much every exhibit and every single thing in the museum was sponsored by a local business or family. Next, I love that they thanked donors and contributors every single chance they got, and they really intentionally honored them throughout the facility. Next, I love that they have a ton of different types of play from fine motor to heavy work to gross motor play, water play, sensory play, and everything in between. I love that it was super clean and organized, and there was a ton of staff working really diligently to make sure that everyone was having a great experience, everyone was following the rules, and it stayed clean and organized. Next, I love that it served a wide variety of interests and ages and abilities and had all of that information and stuff that was great for older kids and siblings, and still a ton of imaginative stuff for the little ones. And then lastly, I love that it had a ton of local flair to it, and it really brought out the local nature and the fact that it was very passionate about Buffalo history and culture and stuff like that. I thought it made it really unique and really fun as somebody who grew up in Buffalo and didn't know a lot of what I saw and read there. All right, so again, all of the information about the museum is linked in the video description. And if you have any questions or anything like that, all of my information, courses, my website, my free resources, my Instagram profile is all linked in the video description. All right, have a great day, guys. I will see you soon.